Live from Rialto, California, Mark Flores presents the Pay-Per-Review Podcast, here with your updates on Raw and Smackdown. Now here's your host, Mark Flores. Thank you for for tuning in to another great episode of the Pay-Per-Review Podcast. I am your host, Mark Flores, here on the April 21st, 2016, and I come to be the bearer of bad news for some of you wrestling fans. The woman that we all know as Chyna from the WWE, WWF Attitude Era, more importantly, has passed away yesterday at the tender age of 45. More than likely, what the autopsy might reveal is going to be something overdose related, because she was found passed out. She was found dead in her sleep. So it's basically safe to assume that she did it on her own accord, being at the age of 45, and that the average age for any woman is about 70 to 65 years old. It's safe to say that 20 years before your time, it's kind of saying that without foul play involved, it's kind of your own doing. This news comes to us at a bad time, just because this is kind of like this was on the outskirts of WrestleMania, and the issue of this year was Triple H, or was the WWE ever going to induct Chyna in the Hall of Fame? That was the main question going in there, and the answer given was never answered at all. They literally just beat around the bush on this issue, where this woman, Chyna, who literally paved the way for women's wrestling in the Attitude Era, by not only being a woman that can actually contend with the men as far as strength goes, but a woman that actually was in her own mold. See, in the Attitude Era, all you really had to go off of was how beautiful you looked and how ample your breasts were. That's literally how the Attitude Era worked of that time. It's just, with the Attitude Era, it basically was playing on ratings, and what sells more ratings than a very beautiful woman holding the women's title, like Sable or Deborah or Sunny, for that matter. But then here you have Chyna, who's equally as beautiful in her own right, but she has her own mold to her. She doesn't she's not cut from the same cloth as other divas. So that's something that you have to take into account, because she was actually a great wrestler as well. Her strength was second to none in the women's division. I mean, she literally can be classified as the strongest women wrestler of all time, even for her short stint in the WWF. One thing to clarify here is that this whole wrestlers dying at a young age, it's not really a fluke at all. This is something that's been a serious issue with the WWE and with professional wrestling in general. Right here in my hand, I have a list of plenty of wrestlers who all died before their time, before they even hit the average age of passing away, which is about 70 to 65 years old for an average male these days. Andre the Giant passed away in his 40s. Kerry Von Erich passed away. Art Barr, Brian Pillman passed away in his 30s. Rick Rude in his 40s. Yokozuna, I presume, in his 30s. British Bulldog in his 40s. Mr. Perfect, 40. Miss Elizabeth, if you guys don't know, that Miss Elizabeth is dead too. She died as well at a very young age. Road Warrior Hawk from the Legion of Doom. Crash Holly. Hercules Hernandez. Big Boss Man. Eddie Guerrero died of an overdose. Bam Bam Bigelow died. Tess died of a heart attack. Umaga, heart attack, actually cardiac complications. So this list that I mentioned is something to remember this whole thing by. It's just wrestlers die at a young age because of a slew of things. I mean, you have to think about one of two things. They're either dying at an early age because of steroid issues, steroid complications, medication issues, Or the second thing to mention, if they leave us at an early age, you might have to think about depression. You might have to think about depression being an issue in the WWE. Think about your average wrestler with one family. They go on a regular tour with WWE. A regular tour with WWE consists of 4 days. It consists of Monday, the Monday Night Raw, and then it consists of Tuesday, which is the Smackdown taping, and then it consists of a third date on the Sunday, one Sunday every month for the pay-per-view. Sometimes twice. Like this month, they're going to do Payback, and then they're going to do Extreme Rules all in the same month. This is something to note, is that with all these dates that you're doing, plus I didn't even mention the live events as well. That's definitely something else to mention as well. So these guys are working a very intense schedule, something that average wrestling, like independent wrestling promotions, don't work the same schedule as a WWE will, because WWE has the money to do all these dates, has the money to make themselves available to plenty of venues to do these kind of things. So that's one thing to note. But to the list I just mentioned, I mean, these guys and women as well have all left us at a young age. There is someone to blame at the end of this. I mean, well, there is something to blame at the end of this, because now you look at a fact of maybe it's derived from all these steroids that some people take. Maybe it's derived from, depression, on the onset of depression from all the work dates that people work, that are separated from their families, separated from from the romantic life. It is safe to assume that a wrestler will have a tough time trying to be in a romantic or a monogamous relationship, because he or she works so many days. It's pretty much impossible to make an actual emotional connection with anybody because you work so many days. Even in regards to being away from your family, that definitely can take a toll on somebody. I mean, I can name. Let me see. We have Eddie Guerrero died he OD'd in a hotel in I think it was Minnesota. Same thing with Test and Umaga. I mean, both these guys died of cardiac issues, but I mean, these guys were still around the age where they were still able to wrestle. Brian Pillman and Rick Rude. Rick Rude died of I think he had a cardiac arrest. Brian Pillman had drug issues as well. I mean, these guys, the correlation between drug use and depression go hand in hand. And if used in excess, the issue of ODing on drugs can come into play. The main thing is that this is where it can all start from, is that a wrestler can get noticed a lot more if he's stronger than anyone else during the tryouts. If you need to take performance-enhancing drugs to actually build another 20 to 15 pounds to add bulk to yourself, to make yourself look more presentable, or match the same look that you're trying to give off, and that emulates the image that other professional wrestlers in the WWE have, then by design you are more you're more likely to be taking these performance enhancing drugs to emulate that image. And that's something that has to be noted, is that if you do take these steroids, a lot of issues can come into play. Several neurological issues can come into play where you're not thinking correctly. And a good example goes hand in hand where Chris Benoit was actually, taking steroids. I mean, it's very safe to say that due to his frame, Chris Benoit was about 6'1", 6 feet, but he had to look at least 240, 230. So that's an extra 40 pounds based off of average body weight that you're supposed to have for a 6-foot person. He had 40 extra pounds of mass on him. I mean, if you don't think he was taking steroids, it wasn't the prayers and the vitamins that he was taking. So what I want to make a point is that Chris Benoit was taking steroids, but on the other hand, he actually had a severe issue where his neurological brain work actually was that of a 14-year-old boy. I mean, his brain mass wasn't at at the same level as a regular adult. So if you ever add roid rage to someone at that with that kind of neurological issues, plus the fact that roid rage can come into play whenever, hence you have the issue where he ended up going on this murder-suicide spree in his home. These issues can come into play. I mean, even on the same list that I mentioned, some suicides did come into play. Some ODs/suicides came into play. Andre the Giant's wasn't that it, but he was just in failing health. But the main thing to get from these this roster, or this is in the list I even mentioned. By the way, I forgot to make this point. The list that I just mentioned is just some of the high caliber stars that actually went before their time. Any video on YouTube showing you from like 1990 to 2015 will show you like a 20-minute video on how, all these wrestlers that have passed away prematurely anyway. You'll definitely see that some of these guys don't even live past their 50s. When you're in a profession where your life expectancy isn't that of a regular job, where you're going to just expire because of old age, that's definitely a red flag. And I think that's an issue that we as fans need to make prevalent. In the respect of China and all these people that actually left before their time, I don't know what we could do as fans to help try to alleviate these issues. But what we can do is, try to keep everything positive from our end to help these guys out. I mean, even in China's, even in respect to China, I mean, she was definitely dealing with some emotional issues. When she left the business, Triple H basically left her for Stephanie McMahon, and, love can do weird things to you, especially in regards to someone just leaving you for someone else. Add that to the fact that you are still on some performance-enhancing drugs. I mean, besides the other pills you're taking to enhance your performance, you're taking other pills to battle your depression issues and stuff like that. I mean, this is all speculation from me on my end as far as this goes, but it's pretty much safe to assume that China was still battling depression from her, till the very day she passed away. You could definitely tell by the way her behavior was. If your behavior is not on par with the norm, it's safe to assume that you're acting abnormal. But what we can do on the fans' end, I mean, we have to keep it positive. Do what we can on our end to make the people, the talent that we enjoy seeing as kids or seeing now still wrestle. Just try to make them feel as positive as possible. I mean, that's what we could do at the end of the day, because ultimately we can't do the decision. We can't, choose the decisions of these wrestlers for them. Hopefully with more awareness of people leaving the business a little too early, hopefully that helps with some people, that are still in the wrestling business to not do anything like that. But with the track record that we see now, it's kind of hard to say that they will do it. But I just wish the best for China and her entourage and her family I wish the best for her. Hopefully she's in a better place, not battling these issues. And me as a wrestling fan, I hate seeing my favorite wrestlers pass away. I mean, I've gotten really worked up when Rick Rude passed away. I got really worked up when Mr. Perfect passed away. When he passed away, I got really, really sad. Even with Testa and Umaga, I mean, and Eddie Guerrero especially, with those guys, it was really sad to see these high caliber talent pass away, and especially at the time where they're realistically in their prime. But it's just sad to see these guys just leave before they're actually due up as far as average age of passing away goes. But I'll leave a moment of silence for China. China, you were definitely a pioneer in your industry. You paved the way for so many other women wrestlers that actually try to emulate your image of being a strong and positive influence for these women wrestlers. So I'll definitely leave you with a moment of silence, my dear. You will be missed, China. Thank you. So, this pay-per-review podcast is brought to you by Game Swappers. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade your retro games and next-gen consoles. That's Xbox One and PlayStation 4. You could come into contact with Game Swappers via Instagram with at GAMESWAPPERS. That's that's GAMESWAPPERS. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade. Keep in mind, guys, that if you do share my podcast via Twitter, via Instagram. Oh yeah, I do actually have a Twitter now, so it's my Twitter is going to be at Mark's Podcast. That's MARKFPODCAST. That's Mark F Podcast at Twitter. You could keep in mind that if you do mention my Twitter, my Facebook, my Instagram, if you share the link to my podcast, we will be able to get you 10% off towards your game purchases at Game Swappers, either in person or online. Just let them know that you do you have shared the podcast, and the manager will honor that. Or if you're going to do a transaction in person, it'll get you 10% more towards your trades. So make sure that you do share my podcast if you're into retro games to get yourself a 10% discount. Or if you want to trade in some old games that are just lying around, go into the store, turn in your games, you'll get 10% more towards your trade-in. So I wanted to get into the Monday Night Raw business, but I want to actually bring out a few good points. The Enzo and Cass Tag Team Tournament versus the Dudley Boys. This was definitely a great match from Enzo and Cass and the Dudleys. The Dudley Boys definitely did carry the match, but it's good to see that Enzo Amore has actually improved his wrestling skills as well. With his mic skills, you could definitely go far in the business, but if you can actually, go 2 for 2 and actually have good mic skills and mat skills, that'll definitely put you over the top in this business. And I see nothing but good things for Enzo. He just has to stay out of trouble, and I assume he is, but I mean, that's just a general statement. But if he stays out of trouble, with the limelight and everything, I mean, the sky's the limit for this guy. I mean, this guy's probably the most overact compared to the New Day as of right now, because everyone's, saying his whole mantra. Everyone's just digging what this guy is saying. Another thing to mention too is that the Dudley Boys are definitely doing their job. They're definitely earning their paycheck, because these guys are just, talent that are putting over the younger talent. And you know what? That's what they're supposed to do. And that's what I definitely appreciate from these guys. They're definitely making the money that they should, because I know that if Bubba Ray was to go to TNA and begin his Bully Ray type of character, I don't think he'd get paid as much as he would just being a Dudley Boy in the WWE. And that's just my personal opinion. Enzo and Cass are also both in excellent shape. That's something to mention as well. Early on in the late 2014 to early 2015, you kind of seen that these guys were actually not in the best shape as possible, especially in the regards to Colin Cassidy. But it's good to see that these guys are actually taking their job seriously, and they're actually in good shape. I hope that they do win the tag team tournament. They deserve the push that they are getting. And like I predicted between the WrestleMania and now, you could definitely assume that the New Day and Enzo and Cass are going to be hooking up as far as the match goes. So it's definitely going to be something to see. I hope that the New Day and Enzo and Cass end up feuding, because it's going to be a mic off, definitely. Both of these two tag teams on the mic are definitely going to put some good work in. So it's going to be good to see that these guys are actually going to go neck and neck, head to head, to see who could come out the victor. And hopefully maybe Enzo and Cass come out with the surprise to get put over as a new tag team. Because the New Day do not really need the tag team titles to be over as well. They can still get over any which way. The tag team titles don't really bring an allure as much as they would if they actually did matter. I'm not saying that they don't matter. I'm just saying that the allure of the tag team, the prestige of the tag team title isn't really where it should be. So especially with the design of it too. I mean, I think the design does a little bit to play into it, because I'm not really fond of the new tag team design. The tag team belts look like two pennies, two like very elongated, huge pennies on a belt. So that's something that I reviewed from the Raw, the Monday Night Raw this Monday. It was in London as well, so it was a pre-taped segment, but it was still live to us here in the States. And then here we go with the Roman Reigns segment. Roman Reigns cuts a segment, brings out the same old line where he's not the bad guy, he's not the good guy, he's the guy. But the best thing about this, the best thing about any Roman Reigns promo is that someone cuts him off. So AJ Styles comes out, basically tells him that he's going to kick his ass come Payback, and he's going to do it, and you're going to be the biggest opponent I faced, and basically trying to put this guy over. As soon as AJ Styles leaves, Anderson and Gallows come out from behind and attack Roman Reigns in the ring. As we all know, is that Carl Anderson and Gallows are from New Japan, and they all came from New Japan with AJ Styles, and they're all in this clique together called the Bullet Club. So this definitely brings back hints of this Bullet Club that I've mentioned before in my predictions of post WrestleMania. So hopefully that we definitely do see this Bullet Club actually take to form very, very soon. But as soon as Anderson and Gallows attack Roman Reigns in the ring, AJ turns around, sees that he's surprised. But hopefully this does bring out the genesis of the Bullet Club, but only time will tell. So we definitely have to see that come the way. This is a no-brainer in regards to what WWE has to do. They need to bring this Bullet Club in as far as merchandise goes, as far as bringing, taking the fans of New Japan and bringing them to WWE just solely because the Bullet Club's in. There's different, there's a lot of little things that can bring more fans in to the WWE just because the name Bullet Club's in there. I mean, even with the fact of taking more talent, I mean, you can actually even try to dig out and try to see if we can get Kenny Omega back from Ring of Honor. There's definitely a bunch of things that we can do to try to bring back the Bullet Club here to the WWE. I think it would be the best thing for WWE because it will enhance the ratings, it'll bring up merch, and it would actually bring prestige back to the tag team titles, because in regards to the Bullet Club, if the Bullet Club definitely gets big enough, we're talking like NWO 1997 size, this can definitely bring a huge pop for the Bullet Club. This could bring the tag team title back to the Bullet Club. You can even bring like an evolution kind of standpoint where they all win the title. Like everyone from the Bullet Club will win a title at a pay-per-view. That's never gotten old with me. I think that's really cool when a certain group or clique wins all the titles at a pay-per-view. But that's definitely something to see. Next we have Cesaro and the New Day versus The Miz and League of Nations. This match to me was action packed. We had great exchanges the whole time. The group was, you could tell that the League of Nations are way better off without Wade Barrett. I think they basically took Wade Barrett out of the League of Nations just to write him off for June. I think he's taken a long-deserved vacation to the point where Wade Barrett is not even back in the WWE. I think that his steam has definitely blew off because he was hot for a few minutes with the Nexus, and after that it just fell off. I mean, there was no with someone that gets injured as many times as Wade Barrett does. There's no, if you're looking at it from a business standpoint, someone that gets injured as much as Wade Barrett does is not worth investing into. That is that's a depreciating asset in the eyes of a business person. So it's definitely something that you cannot, invest in fully and think and expect that you're going to get a return. I hate thinking of wrestlers like that, but you have to think about it from creative standpoint. You got to think about it from the executive board standpoint. That can this guy put butts in seats? That's what it comes down to. Cesaro was awarded the finish with the Dutch neutralizer or whatever he calls it. He ended up getting the pin over the League of Nations and The Miz. with him getting the finish, it does give you a brief sign that the WWE is showing that they are back to reinvesting into Cesaro. By him having the most over group alongside him, it definitely shows that they're trying to bring this guy over. I think that Cesaro's push has been way overdue again. The only thing that sucked to prevent his push from last year was the fact that he was injured, and it took him about 4 to 6 months to recover. Another brief point to bring up is that Fandango actually ended up fighting Baron Corbin, but Baron Corbin is back not back, but he's actually in WWE. Fandango ends up jobbing to Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin ends up getting the end of days on Fandango. And it's very upsetting to see him at this stage. I think Fandango needs to go back to NXT or something to do a repackaging as soon as possible, because I've mentioned too many times before that the dancing gimmick doesn't pay off. And as far as for Baron Corbin, I don't know what WWE sees in this guy. I know this guy is extremely talented in some regards, but I mean, being tall and having this finish that requires the assistance of the other person doesn't really go over with me as a smark. A lot of people may think that he's cool because he's tall and he has that lone wolf looking kind of image, but that doesn't play out. That doesn't play out this day and age. I mean, we in the day of YouTube and social media can see that if we go and look up a Baron Corbin moveset, we're only going to see about a 3-minute video. And to be honest, I'd find it very hard pressed to find a Baron Corbin moveset, because all I've seen him do is shoulder bumps and the end of days. So it's kind of hard to assume that. But I'm not taking anything away from the guy, but I need to see more from Baron Corbin. I don't know what WWE sees in this guy, but maybe I have to look at it from a different perspective, because I wasn't fond of him when he was in NXT doing the same crap he's doing now in WWE, which was basically squash matches that led to the end of days finisher. The 8-woman tag team match. This was next after the excuse me. This was next after the Cesaro, New Day, and The Miz versus and the League of Nations. It was Natalya, Sasha Banks, Paige, Becky Lynch versus Charlotte, Tamina, and Naomi, and and it was Summer Rae as well. This match had a bunch of good outside bumps. It's not as sloppy as these kind of matches were a few months ago, and that's a good thing. These matches are a lot more fine-tuned, and I want to say one thing is that with age comes experience. And in regards to these ladies actually knowing each other as far as how they work, they're actually getting a lot better with their movesets towards each other and their actual calling of spots in the ring. I don't see it as obvious as I used to a couple months ago. But, some things need to take time to perfect. And, I was really harsh on these ladies a few months ago, but I was so harsh because it's not that hard to actually try to call spots in the ring and make it look inconspicuous. It's not that hard to actually, to have an intense cardio to with a point to where you're not like struggling in the ring to pull off these bumps and stuff. Yes, I'm not taking anything away from these ladies. It's just, the precedent has been set by the other talent of yesteryear and the current talent that's in WWE that can actually do these things. But some things need to take time to perfect. In regards to these ladies actually pulling off a good tag team match, they definitely did it. I was very impressed by this match. Not only with the fluidity of the match, but like the actual ring psychology of this whole match, where the momentum was being taken left to right. It was a good tag team match, a bunch of variety. I mean, it's an 8-woman tag team match. I mean, there is going to be variety as far as different alternating tags and stuff, but it's just definitely good to see. The Natalya, Sasha Banks, Paige, and Becky Lynch ended up taking the W. So it's definitely good to see all the faces take the W against all the heels. So it's definitely good to see that. After this, they actually had brief segments of Los Matadores. They were unmasked and repackaged. So this is excellent for this tag team. I think the Matadores, that little gimmick that they had was definitely stereotypical. I think me as a Latino, Personally, I don't think that it was an actual good one to pull off, because I've never seen a Puerto Rican bullfighter. If you are a Puerto Rican bullfighter, please comment on my Twitter. Please do something, because I've yet to meet you. But it's definitely kind of hard to imagine these guys fail at this point, because Los Matadores, they're definitely a good tag team. Any lucha style tag team in the business today is definitely a breath of fresh air. You think of Kalisto with Sin Cara, and you think of Los Matadores. I mean, these guys definitely know how to put on a good match. I mean, with what you don't show in mic skills, luchadores end up having this moveset that's unprecedented, and it actually transcends and actually puts on a good show. But you could think of it as a double-edged sword, because some luchadores never take off their mask. Some luchadores, you need to have facial expressions to put over yourself. You need to have facial expressions to end up doing end up pulling off a good match sometimes. But some luchadores are better off with the mask than without it. Case in point, Rey Mysterio. Case in point, Juventud Guerrera back in the day. But that's just beyond it. Mainly, Los Matadores definitely needed a repackaging, and I'm glad to see that these guys are repackaged. That's definitely good in my book as well. Pretty much nothing else to mention as far as that goes. What I need to see as far as Payback goes, I definitely need to see Charlotte versus Natalya, Kevin Owens versus Dean Ambrose. I need to see. I think Apollo Crews he's going to end up fighting one of the social outcasts on the pre-show, and then we're going to have the Vaudevillains face Enzo and Cass at Payback as well. That's in 2 weeks from now, so all I got to do is just give you one more set of storylines that'll take you into that'll take you right into the eve of Payback, and you'll expect that one from me right after Thursday, just like always on a pay-per-review podcast. One match I'm really excited for is the Dean Ambrose versus Y2J match that's going to happen at Paybacks, hopefully, because Y2J ended up attacking Dean Ambrose at the end of the Kevin Owens Dean Ambrose match. So this heel Y2J is good. It's very enjoyable to watch. It's definitely a breath of fresh air, because face Jericho to me, face Y2J. Isn't really as enjoyable as heel Y2J, especially this late in age of his career. But I'm also really excited to see if AJ Styles has a chance to win against Roman Reigns. I'm at this kind of standpoint where it's kind of really difficult for me to think that WWE Creative is actually poised on trying to put Roman Reigns over as the guy. Hopefully, with AJ Styles being in the mix as a fresh face, hopefully what ends up happening is that Gallows and Anderson end up causing some confliction in the ring, and then AJ Styles ends up pinning Roman Reigns at Payback and then starts the Bullet Club. Something needs to happen. Or in regards to Roman Reigns wins the title with foul play involving Anderson and Gallows, which ends up putting a swerve on everything, and then you see that Roman Reigns is actually going to end up leading the Bullet Club, which is kind of a very rough stretch, but it's doable. It's definitely doable, and it will be such a swerve that you're not even going to expect it. And the best part about not expecting it is that no one can predict that. Seth Rollins winning at WrestleMania 2 years ago, no one could have predicted that. So it's definitely something. Oh, not 2 years ago, but the year before, 2015. Excuse me. But no one could have predicted that. This is something that can be put in so well that you need to keep watching week after week. You need to have that. I haven't been very poised to watch these Raws and Smackdowns for the last couple weeks, just because this isn't entertaining. Having Roman Reigns as the babyface heel kind of guy, this is confusing. It's misidentification. So I need to see some continuity with an established storyline. That's what I need to see in the WWE as of now. But as far as this goes, this is one guy you need to watch. You need to watch Apollo Crews. If you haven't, go look him up on YouTube. He used to work in Dragon Gate as Uwa Nation. This guy was really good. He's definitely someone to see. But other than that, I'm gonna definitely take a little more. I'm gonna take a little more education as far as Raw and SmackDown next week, because I'm always a little light the week before the actual week before the actual pay-per-view, because it's nothing but a slow build up till the next one. So I really want to actually put more emphasis on next week's show, but I actually wanted to do a segment more importantly on the passing of all these premature wrestlers that died before their time. But other than that, I want to let you guys know that this pay-per-view podcast was brought to you by Game Swappers. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade your retro games and next-gen consoles. That's Xbox One and PS4. You could come into contact with Game Swappers on Instagram at GAMESWAPPERS. That's GAMESWAPPERS. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade. Keep in mind, guys, that if you do share my podcast link on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, you could get 10% off towards your retro games. That actually counts towards current games, current gen games as well. 10% off your purchase at Game Swappers, or 10% more towards your trade-ins that you do in store at Game Swappers. So just to let you know, you share it with me via Instagram or what have you. Let me know that you've done it. That way, I can let either the managers know at Game Swappers to hook you up. That way, you share the show for me, and then I'll do something to hook you up on the end of it. Their Game Swappers is our proud sponsor, and they're giving me that kind of promotion to help you guys with coming over to their store, helping me out with my show. Everyone wins at the end of the day, because you get retro games, Game Swappers gets a sale, and then I get a share on any of my stuff. Guys, feel free to like, share, and subscribe my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is solely based on all my podcast stuff. I'm going to have some new stuff go rolling in along the way on my YouTube channel. Stay tuned for that, but I'm not going to spoil that surprise. Keep in tune tomorrow. I'm going to have tomorrow at 9, either 9 or 9:30, I'm going to have another Mark and Andre show. We're going to be covering box office bombs and the most bankable actors of 2015, and actors that you cannot bank on as far as today goes. So other than that, you guys have a good night. If you guys have any questions, just contact me on my Instagram, Facebook, or my Twitter, and let me know what's good. Other than that, you guys have a good night and stay safe. Thank you.